Fourniret was born in Sedan, France, to a metalworker father and a homemaker mother. He claimed that his mother sexually abused him during his childhood. People who knew him described him as a quiet and intelligent child who enjoyed playing chess and listening to classical music. As an adult, he held various low-skilled jobs, such as working in forestry and supervising at a school. At the age of 24, in 1966, Fourniret was first arrested for sexually assaulting a young girl. Later, in 1984, he was imprisoned for sexually assaulting 5 more girls. Fourniret placed personal ads in a Roman Catholic magazine seeking pen pals, which led to correspondence with Monique Olivier after she responded to his ad. In his letters, he shared his fantasies about raping and murdering virgin girls. Olivier replied that she would help him realize these fantasies if he killed her husband, although he never carried out this murder. After his release from prison in 1987, they began a relationship. Shortly thereafter, he not only committed rape but also murdered young girls, with Olivier acting as his accomplice. On December 11, 1987, Fourniret and Olivier traveled separately to Auxerre. They noticed 17-year-old Isabelle Laville walking home from school, a girl they had seen a day or two before and were targeting. Olivier stopped and asked her to get into his car to give her directions, which she agreed to. While driving, Olivier reached a spot where Fourniret was waiting with his car, pretending to have broken down. Following their plan, Olivier pretended to offer Fourniret a ride, and Fourniret got into the car. Fourniret then strangled Laville with a rope while Olivier sedated her using Rohypnol. The couple took her to their home in Saint-Cyr-les-Colons, where Fourniret raped and strangled her. They disposed of Laville's body by throwing it into an abandoned well in Boissy-en-Othe. Her remains were discovered more than 18 years later on July 11, 2006. In March 1988, Michel Fourniret was contacted by 30-year-old Farida Hamiche. She was the wife of Jean-Pierre Hellegouach, an imprisoned bank robber and Fourniret's former cellmate. Hamish asked Fourniret to help her unearth a haul of gold ingots and coins stolen by the Gang des Postiches, which was buried in a cemetery in Fontenay-en-Parisis. After they successfully retrieved the haul, Hamish paid Fourniret a share worth 500,000 francs. However, on April 12th, intending to steal Hamish's entire share, Fourniret and his accomplice Olivier lured her from her home. They drove her to Clairefontaine-en-Yvelines, where they strangled her and buried her body. The couple then broke into Hamish's apartment in Vitry-sur-Seine and stole the rest of the haul. They used the proceeds from this crime to purchase a chateau, the Château de Sautou in Donchery. Hamish's body was never found. By August, Olivier was pregnant with Fourniret's child. On August 3rd, the couple went to a supermarket in Chalon-sur-Marne, now Chalon-en-Champagne, and met 20-year-old Fabienne Leroy in the parking lot. Olivier pretended to be unwell, and they asked Leroy to get into their car to give them directions to a doctor's office. Once she was inside, they drove her to a forest near the Mourmelon-le-Grand military camp. Fourniret then instructed Olivier to check if Leroy's hymen was still intact, but Olivier refused. After assaulting Leroy, Fourniret shot her in the chest. In January 1989, Fourniret met 21-year-old Jeanne-Marie Desrameaux on an evening train to Charleville-Mézières. They talked and she mentioned she was staying at a convent in Charleville. On March 18th, Desrameaux met Fourniret and Olivier, who were using false identities, at the train station again. The couple invited her to their home in Floing, promising to drive her back afterward. She accepted the invitation. Once at their house, Fourniret asked Desrameaux if she was a virgin. She replied that she was not and that she had a boyfriend. Enraged by this, he attacked her. As she fought back and tried to escape during his attempted rape, the couple gagged her with adhesive bandages before Fourniret strangled her. Fourniret and Olivier then drove to Donchery and buried her body in the garden of the Château de Sautou. In July 1989, Fourniret and Olivier got married. On the afternoon of December 20th, they crossed the border from France into Belgium with their 1-year-old son. In Saint-Servais, Namur, Fourniret noticed 12-year-old Elisabeth Brichet walking home. He approached her, asking for directions to a doctor for his son. She agreed to assist, and the couple drove her back to their home in Floing, France. When Fourniret undressed the girl, he noticed she was menstruating, so Olivier cleaned her. The following day, they took Brichet to their chateau in Donchery, where Fourniret attempted to suffocate her with a plastic bag and then strangled her. He buried her body in the chateau's garden, close to the remains of Jean-Marie Desramol. Brichet's disappearance became a significant case in Belgium. Over the years, there were numerous reported sightings, and the police even suspected other serial killers, especially Marc Dutroux. After Dutroux was arrested in 1996, Brichet's mother, Marie-Noëlle Bouzet, helped organize the White March, a large protest honoring Belgium's missing and murdered children. The bodies of both Elisabeth Brichet and Jean-Marie Desramol were finally exhumed from the chateau's garden on July 3, 2004, following confessions from Fourniret and Olivier about the murders. The last known murder carried out by Fourniret with Olivier's assistance took place on November 21, 1990. After being found guilty of burglary in Nantes, the pair went to a shopping center in Rezé. There, they noticed 13-year-old Natasha Danaïs walking through the parking lot and tricked her into their van by asking for directions. They then drove to a remote spot near the coast, where Fourniret stabbed Danae twice in the chest with a screwdriver and strangled her, leaving her body on the beach. A subsequent investigation indicated that she was also raped after her death. An innocent neighbor, Jean Ogre, became the main suspect because he owned a white van similar to the one Danaïs was seen entering. Ogre was also housing suspected ETA members in his home, leading police to speculate that Danaïs had discovered this and was killed to keep her quiet. He was arrested but insisted on his innocence. 2 months later, unable to cope with the false accusation, Ogre took his own life in his prison cell. In the early 1990s, the Fourniret family relocated to Sarrecoustine, Belgium. After a hiatus of 9.5 years, Fourniret began killing again in 2000. On May 16, 2000, he traveled alone to Charleville-Mézières, France. In the late afternoon, he enticed 18-year-old Céline Saison, who was returning home from school, into his van. He then took her back to Belgium, where he raped her and strangled her with a rope. He left her body in a forest in Sugny-Vressé-sur-Semois. Mushroom gatherers found Saison's skeletal remains in that forest on July 22, 2000. On May 5, 2001, Fourniret traveled to Sedan, France. There, outside the local library, he encountered 13-year-old Mananya Tumpong, a girl of Thai descent, whom he had previously given a ride to a few weeks earlier. He invited her to his home to play with his son, and Tumpong agreed, getting into his van. Fourniret then drove her to Nolevo, Palissel, where he strangled her. Her body was found on March 1, 2002, but it had been nearly completely eaten by wild animals. Fourniret was arrested at his home in Sarrecoustine, Belgium, on June 26, 2003, following a failed attempt to abduct a 13-year-old girl. Both he and Olivier underwent extensive questioning, but initially it yielded no results. A year later, Olivier informed the police that her husband had been responsible for multiple murders since 1987. Fourniret admitted to killing 8 women aged between 12 and 30, as well as an unidentified man. The remains of 4 of the known victims were found in France and Belgium between 1988 and 2002. Olivier was also taken into custody, and both were extradited to France, where they assisted authorities in locating the bodies of 3 of the 4 missing victims over the following 2 years. Their trial was held in Charleville-Mézières from March 27 to May 28, 2008. Fourniret was convicted of the murders of all 7 victims whose bodies had been recovered and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Olivier received a life sentence with no chance of parole for 28 years. Additionally, they were ordered to pay 1.5 million euros in moral damages to the victims' families. Neither of them appealed their sentences. Before his 2008 trial, Fourniret had confessed to 8 murders. He was convicted of 7 and sentenced to life in prison. In November 2023, the trial of his former wife and accomplice, Monique Olivier, began, focusing on 3 murders, including those of Joanna Parrish and Estelle Mouzin. Fourniret passed away on May 10, 2021 at the age of 79 following hospitalization due to respiratory issues.